Welcome to episode number 17 of the Castbar. WoW tokens! Who needs a warm house or running water when you can trade your hard-earned cash for stupid video game money? Do you consider Garrisons to be player housing? Neither do we! So let's give that wanted feature a bit more thought during a closer look. We have no mail, so instead let's discuss what all that new WoW gold can do for you as we review the auction house of Warcraft. Thank you, and enjoy. Welcome everybody to the Castbar, the World of Warcraft podcast channeling your content with no interrupts. Today is March 8th, 2015, and thanks to good old daylight savings time, it is now 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And with me as always, I have Evan.
How are you doing, Michael?
I'm doing good. And Florian.
Evening, gentlemen.
And just in case you don't know, you need to put your clocks 1 hour forward unless you live in, Arizona or Hawaii?
Yeah, I know Arizona's exempt from the whole thing, which is funny. And Hawaii, that's news to me if Hawaii isn't affected either.
I think Hawaii is the other state. And I don't understand why my state, Alaska, doesn't do it. Not like anyone cares what time it is up here anyway.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So, how you guys been doing? What you been doing this week?
I was doing some job interviewing out of state and just got back. So it's been a while since I've been on Warcraft. Took my laptop with me with the intention of keeping up with my Garrison chores, but that really didn't happen. And, it's all right. I got some, resources stockpiled. It's all right.
My Garrison chores generally consist of just logging in to do my missions. I don't do my mine anymore. I don't do my herb guard.
You don't do your buildings themselves?
Like the work orders?
Right.
If I really feel up to it.
Well, they made it easier than ever with 6.1 and
that's
that
true.
Create all. So no more excuses except for running out of Draenic dust like I have recently. The first time since the expansion released.
I've actually ran out of quite a few different resources that I've needed for all kinds of different stuff. Outside of fur and ore.
Oh, so you haven't run out of fur. Maybe you've run out of the Gorgon fly trap, so those aren't required for the work order, so just for the daily cooldown. Oh, okay, well, yeah.
But, and I'm not even doing my daily cooldown on most things, because most of the time, I don't even know, what would be worth my time to make anymore, besides just doing it so I can make things. My tailor I'm keeping up with so I can keep making hexweave bags, but at the same time, hexweave bags only sell for 1,500 gold now, so...
Oh, is that right? I saw somebody advertising for 2,500 on my server to buy at 2,500, so that's a little different.
Yeah, I had someone, that's probably about the average price they are in Proudmoore. I see people trying to buy them for 2,000 each, and then occasionally they just get flooded on the auction house, and so there'll be a bunch of them up for 1,750. They're cheaper than Royal Satchels ever were.
Really? Oh, that is kind of strange. I guess it just goes to show how changing the materials to be something that's a little bit more accessible makes a big difference. I really didn't like farming the Spirits of Harmony for Royal Satchels, and that stopped me from getting a single one of those real quick. Well,
the thing with hexweave bags, one, you don't have to be a tailor to make them. You just have to have the building. So there's that. And two, Royal Satchels, one, you had to go to a special place to make the stupid silk. You had to go to the Silken Fields, and also you had to be exalted with the
Golden Lotus. No, Celestials.
August Celestials.
August
right.
Celestials, yeah.
So the requirements for making the Royal Satchels was much more annoying.
That reminds me of vanilla level crafting, where you have to go to the alchemy lab in Scholomance in order to make flasks. It's kind of weird, archaic.
Go to the Black Forge in Blackrock for a bunch of the blacksmithing stuff.
Yeah, to smelt the dark iron. Yeah, pretty much. So it's weird that kind of popped up again. I guess they were saying, testing the waters a little bit. Hey, how do you like going to a specific location in game to do a chore? And
by the way, we still hate it.
We do hate it. Oh, God.
I mean, Anyway, what about you, Florian? What have you been up to?
I've been wrapping things up here, getting ready to go to my next station, which will hopefully have better internet so that I can finally raid again. Aside from that, I also finally got into the Heroes of the Storm beta.
Ooh!
Oh, wow, yeah. Last
Which-
wave.
Like, I was able to play a couple tutorial games, and the game looks very promising, but so far I haven't successfully actually played a real game because, once again, of the aforementioned connection problems. So I'm going to have to wait to pass judgment on Heroes of the Storm.
Well, I can tell you that it's pretty fantastic, and I play it a lot.
Yeah, I imagine. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot more team-based than other MOBAs, which I'm pretty excited about because I like the whole
Sure.
teamwork thing.
Cool, yeah. Yeah, I think we'll all be glad when it's all... Maybe at this point, I'm the only one that's going to be really glad when it finally releases to the public.
Well, you have a piece of good news in that they are supposedly going to be giving some people who are already in the game keys to give to other people, so if either of us get one, then we can just pass it along to you.
Well, I'm not going to be presumptuous.
I'm gonna be presumptuous. I'm gonna be like, I am awesome, so you should give me all of the keys.
Well, I mean, what else are we going to do with them?
I don't know. Maybe you got other friends you like better than me.
Oh.
Okay, I'm not going to turn this to a pity party.
all of the other people I know that would want one already have it.
Oh, well, that's just great.
You're just the odd one out.
Can't get a weapon, can't get a beta key. I quit this life.
Still no weapon?
No, I didn't really get to play over the past week, so no, I didn't get a chance. And I opened my Mythic Highmaul box, and there wasn't a weapon in there, which, the odds would have been like 50 to 1 anyway of that happening, but,
Is that really how bad it is? I guess you do need the two-hander, so...
Well, yeah, they're probably fewer than 50 items in Highmaul that drop for me, but yeah, I mean, there it is.
It's just bad all around. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any really good luck streaks in the game recently, except for those 2 mounts dropping off that gold satchel. I mean, I guess I just spent it all on that. I guess those mounts were rarer than I thought, and now I'm paying for it.
I think I use most of my luck in Diablo. Burn it in a completely different game.
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard actually keeps a little tally across all of your games. Alright, let's get into the news.
Yeah.
Does that seem louder than normal?
No, didn't to me.
Yes. Well, at least to me.
Okay.
The intro as well. I can barely hear you, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. I was like, man, this seems loud. I should talk louder, which probably means I was maxing out my mic, which means it probably sounds garbage. Anyway, welcome to the news. I'll turn those bumpers down for the next few. It's at the same sound level, but for some reason that just sounded super loud. Anyway, so there's not a whole lot of big news coming along, unless you feel like breaking out your pocketbook. But we'll save that for last. First off is the Mythic Method Black Hand video. Came out. They showed their first kill for World First, and it was pretty intense. There's a link in the show notes. Did you guys both get to watch the video?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I did.
It's very impressive.
I was amazed with the coordination they have. Like in the first phase, when they're all stacked on top of each other to the size of like 2 people, and they're running in that small little tight pack all the way around.
Yeah, they've got incredible coordination. It's like almost like robots at some points, and but I guess that's what you expect from a world-class guild.
I was just like I was instantly amazed because of just like that one small little thing.
Yeah, I mean, when you're playing on that level, all of a sudden you're not 20 people. You are one DPSing, self-healing entity.
It was
pretty mechanical. It was pretty, I guess tuned in.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. You don't see that kind of thing in real life outside of these kinds of videos, and I think it's really helpful, as a matter of fact, for learning the encounters themselves, because everything is so kind of clear. one thing I did like was the perspective changes between different characters in the video that they released. I think that was really well done.
That's pretty common in kill videos. I mean, I've watched a good number of them, and that's about how they always work. I mean, I don't know who does their editing, if they have like a special guy they go to, or if it's one of the players on the team, but they always have really, like, because they have a whole bunch of people that are recording, and then someone takes all of that video and goes, this is the best angle for this, and then they splice it all together, and it's really good.
Right. One of the things I thought was really interesting, because I'd never watched any world first or world-class guild kills, was that on the vent chat, they, even in this kill attempt, they're still saying things like, oh, should I go here? And then...
Right? It's like, you don't know?
Saying,
what do you mean you don't know?
What do you mean? Yeah, like they have to, like they're concentrating, so hard on moving together and perfecting the rotation, but they still can kind of say, wait, hold on, run that by me again, during the encounter. I think that was pretty impressive too. The
Wipe
amount of flexibility.
Number 360. So should I go? What?
Yeah.
Surprised this isn't just autopilot for you guys by now.
I guess it's just so autopilot that they can make small tweaks and talk about it in chat, and the chat isn't flooded or anything, so they can still coordinate a little bit. And
there was a lot of just passive talking going on, though. Like
a little bit.
Like,
it was surprisingly calm and laid back all the way up until the very end.
Yeah, the very end was not calm.
Well, it kind of has to be. I mean, when you're banging your head against that same boss over and over again, if you just try to maintain high intensity all the time, you just burn yourself out. So it's kind of necessary for them to maintain their calm.
Like what Evan said, though, with the switching between characters, I always like to see the difference in people's UIs. I mean, because one of the videos they went to, the guy is just using the basic UI. Like, just straight up, just what the game comes with. He still had, like, recount up, but other than that, it was like, I got recount, and that's about it. That's all I need.
Yeah, well, you can do that. I mean, like, for a long time, I raided with just the basic UI. In fact, I didn't start actually using add-ons until shortly before Warlords of Draenor launched. So, I mean, like, the basic UI is perfectly serviceable for raiding. It's not ideal because it doesn't give you all of the extra functionality, but you can work with it if you're willing to work around its limitations.
Now, I'm going to try and not sound like a complete douche here, but I don't think you were a world first raider. And I think it's just this expectation that they were a world first raider, so they must have like all of this, UI and all of these add-ons that tell them, when the boss has farted.
Right.
Which actually might be a mechanic depending on the boss.
That's funny. Yeah, the biggest things that I'm seeing as I've watched more and more kill videos of these higher end guilds or doing the more challenging content is that a lot of people have these add-ons that track the other players' cooldowns. And that's something I haven't really picked up yet.
It makes sense, though. I mean, because people are very responsive, and so it's like, okay, well, we know there's going to be a big damage phase coming up. Should I pop Divine Hymn? No, because, Turles has his Tranquility up, and, that has a shorter cooldown, or it'll give us more throughput, or, it takes longer to cast, or all these different things. So, okay, well, we've said that if his is available, he'll use his first. I can see his isn't available, so I should use mine.
Right. But even if you're a healer, the tank cooldowns, that kind of thing, defensive and kind of offensive. I think it's customizable entirely. I'm not entirely sure if you can track every kind of every player, but at least the most important ones. I don't know whether or not every player has to have that add-on installed in order for it to communicate, or if it can just pull it off of people's client information, or if that kind of thing is broadcasted naturally.
I think it's broadcasted naturally, really. I mean, because anytime you use an ability, it goes into the log, and that's what a lot of add-ons work with, is like the log and LUI interface. I mean, so like,
you'd have to make sure that everybody started with the abilities off cooldown.
Sure, I mean,
I suppose
in Arena, it's like, oh, well, I can plainly see that, the warrior just popped shield wall, but instead of having to watch it and see that, instead it just tells you. I think this just makes sense to me.
Yeah, and
Evan, Florian,
cooldowns right now, so I don't have to.
There it goes. I think Skype lagged itself out a little bit there for a moment.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I've been messing around with weak auras, and I've been using it to track my defensive cooldown, so I can see at a glance, is it available, is it currently active, and how long the cooldown is on it, so that I can kind of chain them one in a row when I need to. I probably have 6 things I got to keep track of, 7 maybe. And I've started wondering, would it be helpful if I tracked Life Cocoon, Power or Pain Suppression, Power Barrier, if I knew when I had a Power Shield on me? And I was thinking about building that functionality into my UI as well, because it does influence tank decisions. And if I know when a healer is blowing, for example, Iron Bark or Bark Skin on me, that's going to cause me to, delay that Bone Shield for another 2 seconds or so, just to make it a little bit more efficient.
Right, and it goes the same way for the healer. It's like, okay, well, the tank, just got hit really hard. Do I need to spam heals? No, he popped Icebound Fortitude. I can just heal like normal, and it'll get him back up over time.
Right, and that kind of thing can be communicated over Vent, but if everybody's saying everything that they were doing, then that would get really messy really fast.
Right. I don't know. Either way, their coordination just amazed me. Their timing and everything, like, you would have swore they were all playing on a LAN connection in the same room.
Yeah, I wouldn't really be all that surprised if they were, but yeah, I know that they're probably doing their own thing in their own places. That's what's so awesome about esports in general. If you consider this an esport, that's perhaps an entirely different discussion.
Yeah, probably. All right, moving on. Okay, we do have some possible upcoming changes to gear. There isn't anything official or how it's exactly going to work yet. But Blizzard has announced that they are not happy still with the way that some stats are playing out. Spirit, of course, is the healing stat, and since they took away dodge and parry, they have put in the ability bonus armor on gear for tanks. And for the most part, this is what these 2 stats. If you're a healer, you should almost always want Spirit, and if you are a tank, you should always want bonus armor. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. Depending on your spec and class, you might value like haste over spirit. I know as a holy priest, I value haste over spirit, as long as I maintain a very, very minimal amount of spirit. I have 1300 right now on my healing gear, and that's honestly a little too much. Like, I don't really need more than 1000 between the ways that I regenerate mana and just the general low ability of my cooldown, low cost of my abilities. So we're running into these areas where there'll be a healer who's like, that trinket with haste on it, an int, that's technically, like a frost mage or a caster trinket for DPS, but there's a healer that wants it, and so now you have people fighting over gear when it's technically better for them, but it's not what they need. It wasn't originally intended to be a healing trinket. There's also another one of these for tanks that I'm not sure which trinket it is. And so Blizzard is trying to take a look at restructuring that, because they don't want you to feel inclined that you have to get this to be effective. Evan, as a tank, have you ever ran into this yet?
As a tank, I've only ran into problems with finding a higher level upgrade that didn't have bonus armor on it, for example, a necklace. And I didn't have any big problems swapping a neck piece that had crit and mastery rather than bonus armor or anything else. It never really stalled my progression. The trinkets that I've used have kind of valued strength and bonus armor more or less equally, with bonus armor pulling a little bit ahead. So if I have 2 trinkets and neither of them have bonus armor on them, it's not really a big deal. I think bonus armor itself is a little bit of a one-dimensional kind of boring stat. It just increases survivability and makes my numbers go up a little bit as far as damage. And, I like having tank exclusive pieces because it's less competition, but I've never really felt like it was very compelling gameplay to stack bonus armor.
Well, because I remember when in Miss Pandaria, there'd be times that I would find, because I ran multiple things in Pandaria, one of which was a Blood DK, and before a couple of changes, you just wanted as much mastery as you could possibly find until you hit 200% mastery. And there was a couple trinkets that were technically DPS trinkets, but they had mastery on them, and I was like, I need that. And it, wasn't tank trinket, it was technically DPS, but because it was mastery, I felt like I needed that to, maximize my output better. Even as a tank. And stuff like that, they really don't like. Did you ever run anything like this, Florian? Were you running a DK in Pandaria?
I did, but I didn't really get to high levels of rating, so It wasn't really that much of an issue for me.
Okay. So, a couple of their possible changes. The only one that they've suggested so far is that they will make Spirit also give spell power, which will make it outright the most valuable stat. That almost makes it more valuable than Intellect to healers. Because Int gives, 2 points of spell power right now? Or is it straight up 1-to-1?
Well, I don't know. I don't play any casters.
I want to say 1-to-1, but I'm probably wrong because I haven't used my Warlock in a long time.
No, I just checked. It's 1-to-1.
With the way that tank stats are simulating right now, bonus armor gives as much attack power as strength, but you also get the survivability, which is why people choose that. And I would be surprised if they did the same kind of thing with Spirit and healers, saying Spirit will increase your spell power just as much as Intellect will, but it's going to be more useful because of the mana regen, and try to compel people to take that stat because of that.
The only question on that is, will they have to add a new passive or something for healers? So, because I don't know the exact specifics of it, but could a mage use a Spirit and haste trinket? I have one, I think. I'm pretty sure this is Spirit and haste. Yeah, Spirit and haste and versatility. Couldn't they? Would they possibly want to use that, even if it gives less mana regen than it would give for a healer, or does Spirit not give anything at all for non-healing classes?
Well, they used to let it give you spell hit, and
that doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, that doesn't matter anymore. So I don't know. I'm curious of what they're going to come up with, and I can't presume to know what direction they're going with. Mm-hmm. I think it will be a good change. I don't think they're going to throw anybody in the gutter or under the bus just for the sake of making this one stat a little bit more compelling. No, I think it'll be kind of a marginal increase that will make it a little bit more attractive to certain people and a little bit less attractive to other people. And I think the correct gear will be going to the correct players as a result, which is, I think, good for everybody.
So, one more question. Hotfix or not until 6.2? Or is it even that large of a priority for them?
I think they'd probably leave it until 6.2. Simply because we've already had a bunch of weird stuff going on with gearing right now, with the way secondary stats are set up and how a lot of them either aren't very interesting or don't really do much, or we've got stuff like versatility, which basically nobody wants.
The most boring stat in the world.
Exactly. I don't think now that secondary stats are a big concern for Blizzard.
I've been looking and hearing that versatility is simulating really high on some specs. I think one of the hunter specs has versatility as the second or main priority secondary stat.
I know it's main priority on feral druids.
Yeah, for whatever
at least
reason.
It used to be, but and it's not that it's a bad stat. I mean, technically what it does is good. It's just boring. I mean, it was like the masteries that were just you just deal, 20% more magical damage. That was Survival Hunter's mastery. I know they didn't want mastery in Miss Pandaria because it just made their magic damage do a percentage extra, which was boring. And that's boring. Whereas it used to be, haste gives you more ticks on dots, so Shadow Priest, you get to actually feel more come out of haste, especially when there's things that have procs related to a stat. So fire mages, they really like crit, and so it gives you more procs on pyroblast and stuff like that. So having more crit gives you a noticeable effect, whereas versatility just gives you more like just changes numbers. It doesn't actually.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about spirit and bonus armor, to be honest. I wish there was a little bit more kind of interactive or more nuanced way spirit could help healers regenerate mana, but as it stands now, it's just a number, It's the same kind of thing, so.
I will say, as a healer, I've done more healing than I have anything else. That has been my focus for probably ever since I've started Warcraft. I like to heal. And I will say that even if it doesn't like affect abilities or anything, spirit is what helps healers maintain their mana, and you do notice. Like, the amount of mana you get out of spirit is very, very noticeable.
Right,
so
yeah.
even if it doesn't like affect anything like what I was talking about, it is still a very, very noticeable stat.
So as long as you feel that going after spirit and finding spirit gear and maximizing your spirit is a part of gameplay that you enjoy and wouldn't want to miss, then I don't have a problem with that. And I guess, yeah, being a tank, there's a lot of mitigation that happens actively on the front line, and then I guess a good part of my mitigation actually happens behind the scenes when I'm out collecting gear at the auction house, trying to improve my bonus armor on my gear. And that's one way to look at it, I suppose.
I think one of the biggest problems with this is that normally, like, when someone, like, I'm going to be talking from a healer perspective. When someone dies, I can spam heals on people, and if I have enough spirit, it means I'm able to spam more heals more often. Because if you're just doing standard healing, you won't run out of mana. You need more spirit for when you need to crank out more heals faster for whatever occasion arises. But the problem is that after you hit a certain amount of spirit, that drain is going to happen either way just because of the sheer amount that your spam heals cost. Because you can't get enough spirit to where you can like maintain the expensive heals. And then you hit this point where if someone's going to die, it wouldn't matter if you had enough mana regen to just spam the heal endlessly or not. So, whether they messed a mechanic or they stood in the fire or whatever, something it made it where they were going to die even if you could spam your best heal without running out of mana. So then Instead you start looking for more effective stats. And that's what I was talking about. There's about this 1,000 spirit breakpoint where it's like, I don't really need any more spirit because even needing the emergency heals, I won't use more than what 1,000 spirit regenerates for me. And so instead I need to find ways to be more effective so I can make up for other people's shortcomings.
So I guess the question is whether or not you hit that cap before, I guess what am I trying to say? Yeah, if you have spirit and all your trinkets and your rings and your cloak and cloak and neck piece, that shouldn't be too much spirit from your perspective, like what you're looking at right now.
Well, I currently only have 1,300 spirit. 782 of it apparently is just from me, and 551 is from gear. And it's a little bit too much. Like, I could probably, like this, I just got a piece from a high mall chest that had 300 spirit on it, and I could probably do just fine if that had something else. Because I just don't need that much spirit. I would rather have haste and mastery, which this trinket's actually really good that I got out of there. But, I mean, if I could change this 300 spirit into 300 mastery, I would just, be super happy with this trinket. I'm super happy already, I just don't need that much spirit off of it. So, and that's the thing, if the spirit does end up giving me spell power, then this trinket will be amazing, and I'll be super happy about it. But currently, it just isn't effective enough for me. So, that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward. I like when they mess around with stats a little bit. I like the new stats they introduced with Warlords of Draenor, and I think that they have a better idea of where they want things to end up. That'll be fun for everybody else.
All right, let's move on. We got one more really nice big thing to talk about. And that's the WoW token. So, soon, we don't know how much it costs or how much you get, but you'll be able to buy a WoW token, which will be a token that's redeemed for 30 days of game time. You buy with money, and the only thing you can do with it is sell it on the auction house for gold. So this is Blizzard's way of implementing a system to allow you to trade your real money for fake money. And the way that this is going to work is you buy the token, You can't even redeem the token yourself. The only thing you can do with the token once you've bought it is sell it to the auction house. Now, this isn't like a set your own price thing. There will be a special tab on the auction house that will have its own amount listed for what WoW tokens are worth at that moment, and it'll be based completely off of supply and demand, probably with a minimum and a maximum. So, it'll be like, if there's 50,000, if there's like 50 WoW tokens on there, that means there's not many people buying them, so they're only worth 30,000 gold. If there's 0 tokens on there, that means there's a lot of demand, so they will sell for 50,000. I imagine it'll have some sort of range like that.
Right, those are pretty good predictors probably, but I'm not entirely sure what the total range is going to be, but just for instance.
And it's interesting because you just sell your token to the auction house, you get your gold immediately for exactly the amount that it said, and then you forget about it and you walk away. And then at any point in time, you can go to the auction house, go to that tab, and see how much WoW tokens are worth at that moment, and buy one if you want. And once you have bought one off of the auction house with gold, that's the only way, and that token that you buy off the auction house, you'll be able to redeem for 30 days of game time.
And you won't be able to trade it again. Once you buy it once, there's no, buy low, sell high, trading at all. It can be traded one time per token, I believe.
Yep. So once you've bought one, that one is reserved for you and your game time and nothing else. If you've bought it off the auction house, if you buy one with real money, the only thing you can do is sell that one to the auction house for gold. So, what do you guys think? Good or bad?
I think it's a good thing. There's no real loss here. You get a legitimate way to buy gold for people who do want to buy gold. They don't have to go through a bunch of suspicious Chinese gold farmers anymore. And if people, and I know this is a problem, especially for younger people who have not entered the workforce yet. For a lot of young people, $15 a month for a subscription is not an amount of money they have just lying around. So it gives them a way to sustain their WoW habit by feeding us who actually have jobs the gold that we want. So honestly, I don't see any real loser in this proposition.
I think it's wonderful. I will not be going as crazy on it as I expect I might, especially because there's not that many things I can think of that don't cost hundreds of thousands of gold that I would want to buy. But it will be nice just to have the option of like, I need a little bit more money. I guess I'll buy a WoW token and sell it to the game.
Yeah, my only thing that I really want to say about the system is it seems really kind of awkward. If it's not going to be a token that you can buy and sell, privately, then why not just let players buy gold direct from Blizzard, or let players buy game time using gold through an in-game interface and keep these two systems separate? Why marry them?
I honestly don't know. Probably so I would imagine it is like this to make it seem like there is less involvement with Blizzard.
Let's see.
Like I think this is designed so it doesn't feel the same as just throwing money at Blizzard. Instead, it kind of feels like you are doing something for other players by buying the token, and you're helping by buying the token with cash, and you're helping other players who do have the cash by buying it with gold. Even though technically it doesn't exist, one player's cash does not help another player's gold in any way, especially because the tab that the auction house is on will be for your entire region. So the auction house with the tokens for the US servers will be shared across all of the US servers. So you don't have to worry about on a low population server, oh man, no one's going to be selling tokens on my server because there's nobody on my server. If someone's selling tokens in your region, then you will have access. The only thing that I don't believe you will ever not be able to buy a token with gold. I think even if there technically isn't anyone that has sold a token.
Oh, really? You think so?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't think it's going to work. You won't see a list of tokens. I think it's just going to be a tab that says, do you want to buy a token or sell a token?
Here's the going rate at this moment.
Yeah,
You know, take it or
it'll
leave
just
it.
be like big pictures. Like, do you want to sell a token at 50,000 gold or buy one at 50,000 gold?
That's interesting that you would suggest that even if nobody had bought any tokens, like say day one, minute one of this system being enacted, you know that nobody has had time to even buy the token yet, but all of a sudden you can buy 10 in a row if you wanted to. I guess if you're gold capped, it would seem a little bit.
Maybe? I mean, that would technically allow a way for people to play for free, even if no one is buying the token, so Blizzard might not do it that way.
Right.
But I also see an irritation from players that have the gold and there's no tokens available. Especially on... Again, this is region-wide, so this would be really difficult for this to happen. Especially
Right.
because the people that have the gold, I imagine, for the first month, there's going to be 500 WoW tokens available. Because, everyone's going to be like, ooh, yeah, gold grab, I got cash in the bank. So, I'll just, buy some tokens and throw them up there and get my money. And I imagine the people that'll be like, I want to play my next 2 years of WoW for free. I imagine that they will just buy them all right then and there while there's a surplus of them, and then the people that would want to buy multiple in a row wouldn't even have this issue arise in the first place because they would have already bought them during the peak when they were available at the largest quantity.
So, what do you guys think? Is the average player more likely to buy game time with gold or to buy gold with money?
Well, Florian, you go first.
I'd say that's a very difficult question, and it mostly boils down to what the current demographics of WoW are. Because the simple fact is, like, an adult who has a full-time job is not going to have a problem paying $15 a month, whereas a lot of kids and teenagers, for them, that might be a much bigger problem. And right now, it's really hard to gauge. Like, if you'd asked me during Mists, I would have said the population probably tends to skew towards younger people, because it seems to me that Mist was kind of made to pull in younger players and get some fresh blood into WoW, so to speak. But right now, with Rulers of Draenor, a lot of older players are coming back, so it's very difficult to say. I would say right now, as things currently are, it seems like there would probably be more people selling WoW tokens than buying them. So because I feel that right now the player base is kind of skewing towards an older age range than it did during the Pandaria times.
Another thing to remember, though, is that people have more gold. Collectively, people have more gold now than they've ever had before. There's so many ways to get large amounts of gold right now. You can get, we've talked about it before, there's good gold in old raids, there's gold from missions, there's gold from BOE epics. Even if they only sell for 10k, 10k, even last expansion, was something a lot of people didn't have. And now that number seems to shift more towards 50k of what people don't have readily.
Right, yeah.
Because you just get so much gold from quests and missions, and everything is just overflowing with gold in places. So gold is a lot easier to get now. So that's the only thing that and also, we don't have a price for the WoW token yet, and it's good for 30 days. It is not going to cost $15. It'll probably cost, I imagine it'll cost $20.
Oh, you think they're going to increase the value of a month of game time in this exchange?
Correct. I think so. That is my prediction, that you can buy a month for yourself for $15, or you can buy a token that's worth the same amount of time and sell it in the game, but that one costs $20. Because you're technically not buying your own game time. I mean, mate, I also could see why it would only be 15, but I would not be surprised at all if it was 20.
Yep, I agree. I agree with that. I agree with what Florian said too about this being more of a seller's market, or a buyer. It's a buyer's market because more people are selling than are buying with in-game gold.
And at the same time, though, there's lots of people that have tons of gold.
And I wonder if it will be kind of obvious to the average player if there's a shortage, or a surplus.
They said that they would.
Tokens.
If I remember correctly, in the post, they said that it would be obvious how the market was going. And I think that'd be most evident if, like I said originally, if there was some sort of range that was posted. Which I think those original numbers I said will be pretty decent. 30k if there's a surplus available, 50k if there's a deficit. And the only thing about this, and let me ask your guys' opinion on it, is this takes out the ability for personal transactions. This takes out the ability of, well, I'll tell you what, you can get I'll trade you this, this is not correct value at all, but I'll trade you this, magic chicken, the magical rooster from the card game, if you buy me a WoW token, or you buy me
Right,
2 WoW
yeah.
tokens or whatever. That can't happen
And I think this is the only way that the system would have been able to be enacted was with a system like this. And that's because when we first started discussing this, when the news was when they were teasing us about this idea back in, was it January? And one of my comments was, will this inflate or destroy the gold seller market? Because if the gold sellers can buy these tokens up for less than, using labor that was less expensive than the token cost itself, then it would just play into their hands, kind of. This removes that. Also, this kind of removes my fundamental problem with using the system for my own self, which is not wanting to deal with the auction house and deal with undercutters and all that. To be honest, I think this is the best way to implement it that I had considered. Or better.
The only thing I don't like about this is that if I still... there is a way to gift people game time, right? You can still gift people 15 days, right? Not 15 days, a month. I know you used to be able to. I think you still can.
I'm not sure about that.
I know you can gift 2 months at a time. I think you can gift 1 month. It would have been nice because I will admit to have buying friends game time in exchange for things that they have. And it would be nice to have a legitimate in-game way to do that. But I guess they didn't want that to be an option. And I'm not sure why. Because now I can't... Unless I can gift the game token, maybe, I don't know, but there's no way for me to do this on a personal level.
No, I guess you'd have to do a game time gift through the Blizzard store, if that's what you're saying.
Right. I just don't know if you can gift the game time through the Blizzard store still. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to see how it plays out. I'm kind of excited about it, but yeah, just a little bit confused about implementation.
Either way, check how much gold you have and start grinding up so you can have free time, or break open your wallet so you can have a big old pile of gold that you might not buy anything with. I guess we'll just have to see what the value is. Let's go and do a closer look. See, that sounded much better on volume, and that was at half volume. So, I don't know what was up. Anyway, welcome to A Closer Look, everybody. So each week we do a closer look in which we will take a little bit more time to talk about something in Warcraft. Whether it's a feature or who knows what. Just something that we think needs a little bit more conversation adapted to it. It's very rarely anything you would consider news. Just something in the game that just needs a little bit more thought. And this week we're talking about player housing. This is something that is probably one of the most requested feature across probably any MMO I've ever played. People, these worlds are big and expansive and they're wonderful and awesome. And you're normally this big, awesome player. So people are like, why don't I have my own cool little place to hang out in and do stuff in? Why don't I have my own little, house? And also because houses are pretty sparing in most of these places anyway. So people have almost always in MMOs, at least in my experience, have wanted player housing, and Warcraft is no different. Now, the first question is: do either of you consider Garrisons to be player housing?
Definitely not. It shares some of the features of player housing in that you have your own area that specifically belongs to you, but I don't see any way that a garrison could really be compared to a house properly. And secondly, because player housing is something that needs to be permanent, it needs to be attached to the character and stay with them. And after Warlords of Draenor, garrisons are going away, almost certainly, and we will probably never go to our garrison again. So I don't think it's proper garrison housing.
Oh, I
Proper
totally will
player
be.
housing, rather.
I got to make sure all of my characters in every single slot in their bank has a Hexweave bag.
And the second thing about player housing is that it needs to be more customizable, because the whole point of housing is to have a place that's your own. It's your spot. You know, you've made choices about it. You've decided how it's going to look and how it's going to be. And with the garrisons, there's a certain basic template that everyone has. So your garrison is going to look on a basic level like everyone else's garrison, which it's not really proper housing per se.
Did you put the barracks on the left or the right?
Yeah, it's pretty much your only choice. I mean, and that's not housing. You know, I want to decide where my couch goes. It's important. I have feng shui to maintain.
No, it is important, and it's something that has been a call from people of its importance for years on end. The customizability of player housing. Now, next question: what games have you guys played that has player housing in it, whether it's an MMO or not? Because there are some Fable, I think, has a lot of player house customization in it. And that's technically not an MMO, but it's a good example. So, like me personally, I've played WildStar and its player housing. I've played RuneScape and Skyrim. With its expansion, Hearthfire has a lot of what you could consider player housing, and we can talk about those just a little bit. But what other games have you guys played that have player housing incorporated inside of them?
I played 2 different games with player housing, and they approached player housing in the kind of 2 different ways. One of them was Ultima Online. That was back in 2004 or so. And that was a game where there was open space out there in the world, and you went to an architect and you bought a deed, and you went and built that house wherever you could find a space for it. And then Final Fantasy XI, back around the same period, 2003, 4, 5 or so, there was an instanced section of the city where you could go, and it would teleport you to your house, but I guess you'd have to be in a group with somebody else to visit their house, or I'm not sure if it was possible to visit somebody else's house, but it was more the kind of garrison thing. Everybody's house was located in the same geographic space, it's just instanced separately. So 2 different approaches to the same kind of mechanic.
Now, Ultima Online, were people in the same instant space like that, or is it just this open-ended thing?
Ultima Online was completely non-instanced. It was Seamless World.
Okay.
I think there was a different server where the Second Age content was located that you'd have to kind of teleport to get to, but everything on the main server was separated by server lines and everything. But there wasn't any instancing. That was this is before that kind of technology, I believe.
Okay. Well, what about you, Florian? Have you played any game in general, MMO or otherwise, that had some level of player housing implemented in it?
Yeah. The main 2 that I've played that had implementations of game player housing were Ultima Online. No, not Ultima Online. What's it called? Anarchy Online. Sorry, I get my onlines confused sometimes.
I haven't even heard of that
Anarchy
one.
Online. It's sort of a dystopian sci-fi MMO. It was made by Funcom, the guys who made The Secret World. And they gave every player just sort of like a dumpy little apartment that you would actually get at the beginning of the game. You didn't really have to earn it. You were just kind of handed this apartment. So it was kind of a free handout, but that was nice of them. And the other was Final Fantasy XIV, which they've approached housing in sort of an interesting way, where they have these individual towns that are specifically dedicated to just player housing, but they only have a limited amount of housing available. So once all the housing lots are bought up, there's no houses left for anyone to buy. So housing is actually something that has actual real estate value.
That's awesome.
There's essentially a real estate market, if you will.
Right. And the same thing was in Ultima Online, because the terrain didn't change, and once all of the space was taken in a really super populated server, it was the same kind of thing. There were people who made their gold brokering real estate. Honestly, you can go to a house and read its sign and say, for sale, message me on ICQ, which was popular back in the day. So yeah, you have that kind of crazy emergent gameplay when you have that kind of limited market, which I think is kind of interesting.
That's awesome. Okay, the games that I have played, WildStar, one of its main features when it was released and before it completely died out, was its player housing. You had this little floating island that you had to do all this. You could do these crazy levels of customization on. It was really good. And you could do a whole bunch of different customization inside and outside. You could change the walls, the design of the house, whether it was kind of tower-like or kind of ranch-style home, things like that. And there was also, kind of like Garrisons, there was things that you could add on the outside of your house on like the rest of the island, like a mine and stuff like that. But the house itself was very customizable. But you were still limited to like templates. Then we go to RuneScape, in which RuneScape had this like wonderful love for grinding things. You had to grind up all of your different skills, whether it was like a sword or, magic or whatever. And they had a skill called, I think it was called construction or something like that for RuneScape. And the higher your construction, the cooler and bigger stuff you could build. Now, they didn't have templates because everything in RuneScape is very boxy. So instead you could just like add another room, and then you could add more stuff and make things and add items and stuff into said room and put stuff on the walls in different places. For as low tech as RuneScape was, it worked pretty well. And then the other one that is Skyrim, and they have Hearthfire. And it's very, very unpopular because what it is it's you find this spot and you plant a house there, and in all of these games you're able to go out and farm materials. You got to farm wood to be able to build wood stuff and stone and all that kind of different stuff. You'd have to go and get the materials yourself, or you could obviously buy them online if that's what you wanted to do. And then Skyrim, it was really, really just like Garrisons. There's this base house design, and the house design changed because there's like 4 different places you could build the house. So kind of like what they originally thought they wanted to do with Garrisons. There's this base house design, and then in each wing of the house, you could add a different type of room. So it was like, well, I'm going to build a mage tower over here, and then you can make the mage tower bigger. But there wasn't a whole lot of like customization of how stuff sat and stuff like that, because WildStar, its home design was really popular because you got to put anything you wanted in a 3D space. So you could like create this little thing over here and make it float and tilt it in a 360-degree spherical pattern so it's sat funny, and then stick something on top of it like a chair, so it'd be this cool little crazy looking balancing chair and stuff like that. So you had this free ability, and so there's people that spent tons and tons of time and their levels of creativity on their home in WildStar. And kind of an in-between of all of this is Star Wars of the Old Republic, in which you get a pretty unique looking home because your home is technically a ship, and there's a whole bunch of different types of ships that you can use for your home. And inside the ship, you can change and add rooms a little bit, and then each room has these like big blue plots on them where you can put items down just inside these specific areas and move and adjust things inside those areas. And there's a humongous level of customization there as well. So we have this whole spectrum of player housing, and like SWTOR, they loved microtransactions. Oh, you want this cool looking lamp? Well, that'll cost you $1. Stuff like that. The thing about SWTOR, though, that was cool, is that if you wanted to, you could set your house to be public, and people could visit your house all the time, whether you were there or not. And you could put merchants up in the house and games and stuff like that you could put in the house, which is a really neat little implementation that I think that SWTOR did. And now we come to Warcraft, which in most people's opinion is completely behind the times in regards to player housing, because well, we still don't have it, and it's, an old MMO. It's old. Why don't we have it yet? Would it cost us a raid tier? If it was to the level of customization that like WildStar or SWTOR would that be so bad? Because, I suppose, the raiders would be upset, but at the same time, there'd be a ton of people, because they are trying to appeal to this casual crowd. So where do you think WoW sits on the terms of actual player housing, if Garrisons aren't it? Which I hope they're not considering it on an internal scale.
Well, I think that Garrisons were a kind of essay in the craft of player housing and figuring out how it might be implemented. Honestly, I think I disagree with Florian a little bit, and I think this is pretty much WoW's version of player housing for us at this time. I'm sure that they're going to try the same kind of thing in the future expansions, as far as having customizable personal, geographic area for compelling gameplay. It won't look exactly like Garrisons in the future, but I'm not entirely sure if we're going to be able to custom design a small little blood elf hut for ourselves and place it in Eversong Woods. I don't think that's coming, and I think Blizzard realizes the demand, but I think they really struggle with how on earth they would ever implement something like that, with the way the terrain is set up, with the way the environment is set up, and with the things that the housing would kind of have to do to satisfy players' criteria.
Well, here's a thought. Last week, we even mentioned that we thought the possible next expansion could be Eye of Azshara in the Southern Isles, right? The South Seas. What if, in said expansion, they make it, and this is going to sound very similar, because Blizzard has shown time and time again they have no problem with ripping off other people's good ideas.
Right, yeah.
What if, because it's a whole bunch of islands, they choose to copy WildStar in the one thing that WildStar did right, player housing, and we get our own little island down in the Southern Islands?
Would that be any different from these Garrisons, though?
If you can customize the rooms and put items in there and customize them in the same 3D space the way you can WildStar, like, if you get a chance, whenever you get a moment, just go, look at an example video on YouTube of WildStar's player housing. It's really incredible, the stuff that you can do on there with the way that you can move and adjust items. And I think Blizzard is too focused on creating new stuff, when if they let us play more with stuff that already exists, it'll work just fine. So it's like, they have all of these items and stuff like that. Instead of designing a new Blood Elf building, just let us copy one of the ones that exists. It's like, I want to stick this Blood Elf tower here. Sure, it looks like the same one that exists in Eversong Woods, but I don't care.
Yeah, and be able to put little pillows and hookahs everywhere.
Right. They probably... because, the pillow that you see sitting there is probably its own 3D model. It's probably... it probably has its own 360 design that they were able to spin around and design. So now instead, just make that an item that we can pick up and move around. And put it wherever we want. And then you can do... Again, just copy WildStar and make mobs and stuff in all kinds of different raids and dungeons and environments and all over the place. Drop these things for your house.
Maybe. And I think we might be running into a design philosophy problem, because I think Blizzard might be the kind of company who would say, no, we want to design the world. We don't want players to be designing the world for us. We want everything that a player can experience to be something that our art team, design team, and gameplay team have custom tailored to provide the best kind of experience and immersive gameplay, which is why they probably won't let us do, custom player-made scenarios and that kind of thing, like we were talking about the other week.
I think that's completely different, just because that is a gameplay feature and not a home customization feature. Like, think of any time that people are like, I'm going to go design a house in The Sims, or, people that do creative mode in Minecraft, There's, sure, there's the adventure option, or the in Minecraft, or the actually play another person's life option in Sims. But I know personally, I've gotten a ton of enjoyment out of just designing a building. And then, putting little things inside of it.
Right. And then, well, here's a small timeline of how housing worked in Ultima Online at first for the first 2-3 expansions. For the first release and this 2 expansions after that, housing was template based. You bought a stone and plaster house, you bought a small tower, and these were deeds, and it created the house on the spot. You couldn't change anything about it except what was inside. And then their third expansion, Age of Shadows, they allowed you to place instead a plot of a certain footage by certain footage, and you were able to construct all of the walls and ceilings and staircases and doorways and things like that, which is a big change all of a sudden. Instead of having this kind of consistent old high fantasy style stone and plaster period architecture everywhere, all of a sudden you have people with crazy checkerboard houses, or people who would put a plot down and put their stuff in it and not even bother to build walls and all that kind of thing. So it really changed the environment and the face of the game as you walked around in the wilderness, coming across these houses that were built by people who should never be given a design tool at all. And I guess Origin, which was the production team at that time, had to kind of take that risk. So you give the players too much customization and they can, really just, be terrible at it. And I don't think Blizzard wants to stomach that.
Well, the thing on that is that if make it instance the same way that things are now. For garrisons. You can't just freely go to someone else's house. Designing a house in a room and putting stuff in it and stuff like that gives nothing besides personal customization. It doesn't give any gameplay bonus. It doesn't give any gear or items or stats or anything like that. It's just purely for your own enjoyment of your own place. If someone's bad at it and designs something terrible that only they really see, is that so bad? Now,
yeah, I'm not sure.
Make this optional, by the way. Don't force us into it like you did Garrisons. If this is just something you can do if you want to, because all these other games, player housing, I don't know about Ultima, but Skyrim, the expansion Hearthfire really was about the house. So, if you didn't you just didn't get the expansion. It was only $5, but that's not the point. And then all of these other games that I've mentioned, RuneScape, if you didn't want to do the house, if you didn't want to do the skills, you just didn't do it. You went and did other stuff. Same with WildStar. You didn't have to have a house. It was just one of the biggest and coolest things in the game. SWTOR, same thing. Some of those ships are really expensive, so some people just didn't go after it. So it's no different than Garrisons. There's a ton of people who are do we have to do this? And the answer is no. The original answer was supposed to be no, you didn't have to. But then they changed their mind, I guess, on all of that, and now you do have to.
What do you mean by that? You think you have to do Garrisons now?
You have to do a little bit. You have to start your Garrisons.
No, I'm not even sure you have to start your Garrisons.
To proceed in the quest line, to actually level, I guess you could level up without your garrison and just grind mobs, but quest wise, they go through your garrison.
I think there's garrison related quests in every zone, but if I went to Talador level 93 without my garrison without having even gotten a level 1 garrison, I think those quests would still be available.
Maybe. I'm not so sure. I really wouldn't be surprised if they weren't, but they could be. But just for example, for the most part, they intended that you need to start your garrison. You need to do those little introductory quests. Could you level up without it? You may or may not have quests to help you, and it could be really strenuous because you're just going to be grinding mobs, and I guess you have dungeons too. You don't have to be your garrison to do dungeons. But for the most part, they intended for garrisons at the beginning to be mandatory. Player housing could not be. Just give people the option of getting into it if they so choose. So me and Evan have been going back and forth. What about you, Florian? Where are your thoughts now that me and Evan have blabbered our mouths enough?
Player housing is definitely something that's going to need to happen in the future. There's just too big of a demand for it, and it's too big of a staple of MMOs for Blizzard not to do it. And especially now that we've got garrisons nailed down and figured out, there's absolutely no reason we can't have it. because a lot of the major problems that would have existed with player housing, for example, having lots of different phased instances for everyone's individual house, those are problems that were already present before and were solved with garrisons. So I really see absolutely no reason we shouldn't get them in the future, both player housing and potentially even guild housing, which I would probably be more excited about because that would probably be a huge boon for role players.
I know games that have guild housing. I don't know about Guild Wars 2, but the first Guild Wars had guild housing, and Terra Online just implemented guild housing in the form of a lot like WildStar, flying castles. They're called sky castles.
Crazy.
Yeah, I know the ones in Terra are really difficult to get, but they exist.
Well, I mean, it shouldn't be easy to get. I mean, like, you know, outside of an MMO, like, I don't know how it is where you guys live, but buying a house is generally a pretty big undertaking. And if you've got a huge group of people, you generally need a pretty large building. So I would think, yeah, that should be something that a guild would have to work really hard for and spend a lot of time on eventually earning.
I agree that a guild house should be difficult to get. Player housing should be a fun, casual-esque feature. And that's what this really appeals to. Is Blizzard is constantly looking for more ways to do things for casual players. Whether it's, you know, I even consider putting in we have battle pets. A lot of the stuff with garrisons can be, we've already talked about how the garrison missions are really like a Facebook game. Your garrison, in the entire essence of what it is like a Facebook game. So in that sense, true player housing would be a whole new level for casual players. It would give them another reason to go back and do old things. You know, it's like, I really want this cool, I want to stick Ragnaros' hammer right here. Well, you got to go get it. And, you know, it's got a crap-tastic drop chance. So you get to farm Molten Core with a whole bunch of other people. So you can get Ragnaros' hammer so you can hang it on the wall, because that would be really cool. You know?
Look.
And who cares if everyone has Ragnaros' hammer on the wall, because you're not constantly in other people's houses. I go to other people's garrisons maybe once a week. So it wouldn't even be a big deal. It's just cool stuff to customize stuff your way, which allows for more time sank into this game to give Blizzard more money. Speaking of giving them more money, there is nothing. I don't see anything wrong with if they wanted to go, here's a really cool wall design. That's $1. You know, you want this design of roof? That's $1. You know, I know a lot of people snub their nose at microtransactions, but microtransactions of this design give zero gameplay benefit. So it's purely just if you want. I know the hatred of microtransactions came from games like Candy Crush, where it's like, if, you know, or Clash of Clans, where they almost feel like pay to play or pay to win, stuff like that. I know Hearthstone actually gets some flack for feeling very pay to win because it can be very slow to get cards. But if it's just purely cosmetic, like, I don't believe Blizzard has gotten very much flack on the transmog helms. I know a lot of people think that they're too expensive. I kind of agree with that. $15 for a helm is kind of expensive in my mind. But that's something that buying that does not make me better or worse at the game. So it's purely cosmetic. What do you think?
I wouldn't want to see it devolve in that kind of thing where I can build a house and make it look exactly how I want to, unless one of the skins that I want for my walls is premium. It doesn't make any sense. I think a game that's subscription-based especially should have as little premium content as they can get away with, because it really starts to kind of pile up after a while. So many additional services, so many cosmetic items and flavor items that cost money to buy, and mini pets and mounts and transmog helms. I mean, it's just it kind of gets tiresome. So I imagine them coming up with a really cool system like player housing that's completely customizable, and you can make it look like Silvermoon if you want, Undercity or Stormwind style buildings and this and that. But then all of the coolest skins and all the ones that have the most developer time invested in them is on this premium list, and you need to pay a little bit more money to have access to it. That doesn't make any sense, especially when, like you're saying, you're the only one who's going to be looking at this thing. It's not like a transmog helmet that you're going to go and show everybody. It's your own personal garrison, and it would be like a role-playing tax, I feel. The people who want to, I can't imagine anybody would want to buy these skins just so they can look at it themselves. I think people want to buy them skins if they feel like they're going to be bringing people over to their house. So that doesn't seem very fair to me.
Would it surprise you?
It would.
Okay.
It would surprise me, I think. I think they're doing these sorts of transmogs and mounts and things, and I think generally the players are... Yeah, it's hard to say, because with this new WoW token thing, I think what the players are saying is we're more than ready to bust out our wallet to have an easier time in this game.
Well, here, let me ask you this question. As an example. So, now, obviously, player housing would have more customization than what the example I'm about to give you. But Blizzard put its time into designing garrisons with the standard Stormwind and the standard Orgrimmar look. How would you feel if you could pay $5 or $10 and change every single building in your garrison to look like a Blood Elf building or a Tauren building? It affects nothing. It's just something that you would prefer to look at over the standard stuff they designed.
I would feel incredibly cheated by that, because if they went through the design effort to make all those options available and offer them as a premium service, I think that would just be unfair. I mean, why do character transfers cost any money at all? It's to prevent people from transferring willy-nilly. I think Blizzard said that, publicly. And the same with the customization of your character's looks and race and everything. They want you to be attached and feel like there's kind of a sense of permanence, and it's not just like a race of the week thing. So what would be the possible reason why they would have Tauren and Blood Elf and all these racial building schemes for your garrison and not give you access to them?
To make money, because that is Blizzard's goal.
I don't think that they would want to make money that way. Honestly, providing a premium mount's one thing, but restricting access to content that they've already developed, it's hard. It's like a gray area. What do you think, Florian?
Yeah, it's at a certain point, I don't generally have a huge problem with microtransactions like that, but at a certain point, you have to wonder, once they're putting so much stuff on the Blizzard store and there are so many microtransactions available, at a certain point the question becomes, well, what are we paying the $15 a month for? So, it's like Evan said, it's a really, really slippery slope. And if they set up a player housing system and they have a ton of different decorations you can get, but the microtransactions are the only way you can get them, that would it just wouldn't feel right.
Okay, I think you guys might have misunderstood me. For example, let's say custom items that you can hang around in your garrison, right? Decorations and stuff. Let's say there's 15,000 that you can get in the game with just your subscription. But there's 50 that cost $1 each that are a little bit more unique on the Blizzard store. There's still these 15,000 you can go find and collect, some of which are very cool and very rare, like the example of Ragnaros' hammer, or, maybe a little miniature Khadgar tower statue that you can put in the corner, or, something like that.
Oh, yeah. With all the mounts that we have, and the premium mounts don't seem like that big of a deal, that's fine in a system like that. And
that's what I'm saying.
Of if your garrison could unlock all the racial buildings, you just had to pay $5, that would feel like a slight. Because you have this system with the garrisons and you have the one look perfection, right? And they're saying in order to customize it at all, you have to pay. Not in order to get these specific options, you have to pay. They're saying in order to change it from Stormwind to anything else, you got to pay, and that's a little bit, racy. It's like if everybody had their racial mounts. Like, I'm a Tauren, if I had access to my Kodo and nothing else, unless I paid a premium, then that would feel a little bit more sour.
Okay, so what if instead, now another example, you have access to change your garrison to look like any of the other main racial factions. So you, as a Tauren, you can make yours look like a Blood Elf, or the Scourge, or Taurens, or Trolls, whatever that would possibly friggin' look like.
It's a little straw huts, yeah.
And instead, so now you have these options already given to you at base, right? Now, what if you can spend, I'm just going to say $10. Say you spend $10 and it makes your entire garrison look Nerubian, or look like Ice Crown Citadel, or look like, I don't know, Blackrock Caverns, or look like the design for Throne of the Four Winds and Vortex Pinnacle. These other architectural designs that aren't attached to your race. These are just other architectural designs. Look like Oldham, look like something out of Ungoro or Zul'Gurub.
Right, I understand. I think that would be a lot more compelling gameplay if you were able to unlock those styles through luck and random world drops, or through some kind of progression. For example, like the Blackrock armor scraps, if you were able to collect Nerubian architectural fragments or blueprints, or through some kind of reputation grind. For example, you can get the bird people, the Nefar set from Oldham. Is that right?
Oh.
No, the bird minotaur, or the bird-headed lion people.
Romkahen?
Oh no, those were the tiger people. They're the mortal enemies of the
bird-headed lion people.
The bad guys in the that's a bad example.
Are we talking about Oldham or Spires of Iraq?
Oh no, Oldham.
I don't know. I'm not even going to try and rack my brain on that one. I remembered Romkahan. I should get points for that.
Anyway, some kind of a reputation grind, perhaps the Romkahan, if you want the unlock little sandy thing. I mean, something you can kind of work towards, not something you can only have access to if you pay. You know?
Okay, let me revise what I was originally trying to say. So, base, they give you Stormwind Orgrimmar. You can unlock via gameplay purposes or reputation or whatever, like you were just talking. You can unlock the other faction racial buildings, or you can spend $5 and unlock these unique ones like I described previously. Would you feel slighted?
I think it boils down to the number of options you have versus how much of that is a premium. I think it's proportions, to be honest.
Okay, so if you can unlock 15 but there's 2 of them that are on sale on the store, it wouldn't be a big deal?
That would be less of a big deal. Do you agree with that, Florian?
I would say that would be all right.
Okay, so it's purely just a matter of how much you can get on your own versus how much is available via cash.
Well, yeah, because if they only let you get, say, 4 or 5 different garrison themes on their own, and then put like a dozen on the Blizzard store, you're going to be like, you guys did all that work putting this together, and you're not going to give us this content. You're going to nickel and dime us on top of our $15 a month, and you'd feel cheated. But if they just throw 1 or 2 things up there, it's kind of like the mounts, like there are, a ridiculous number of mounts in WoW. But
200, 300, 400.
Yeah, but there are only a handful that you can actually buy on the Blizzard store, and that's okay. But if there were like 2 dozen you could get in the game, and like 3 or 4 dozen on the store, that would be a problem.
Okay, I think I was just trying... I think my examples just came off as misconstrued then. Because I wasn't trying to say that you can only use this one, and there's these 10 others that you can buy. I also agree that there should be more that you could unlock than you can buy. Whether that's how it always works or not is a completely another story based on, game design and stuff like that. So I understand and I agree with what you're saying. So if there's 20 garrison designs, you should be able to unlock 15 of them and maybe buy 5. If there's 20,000 items in the game, maybe unlock 18,000 of them and buy 2,000, so that you have a good number of options. Well, subscription game, so free is a loose term here, freely available to you. And then there's some other ones that are available for cash for the people who really want to buy them.
Right, but I would knock that proportion down to more like 5% rather than 25%.
I think that would be probably about where it would be. Just because with things like items and stuff like that, they would probably put the unique, pretty, stuff they've put extra work into on the store, so there'd be less of that. Whereas, all of the stuff around Warcraft that you see all the friggin' time, that would be stuff that would just be readily available for you to go find somewhere else. You have to go get you can get a broom to float around your house and sweep if you go, and it has a chance to drop from the custodian in Garrisons or something like that. These are just examples I'm throwing out.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, that's the kind of thing that I might like to see, like unlocking a little bit more customization, using a lot of the architectural and art styles that are already available in the game in order to kind of create your own little mini town or mini stronghold or mini house. I think would be a good addition. I think a lot of people will be about that, and I think Blizzard, if they decide to implement it, would be able to come up with some compelling gameplay surrounding such an abode.
So, now that we have completely beat this into the ground, it is something we want to see, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Florian, yes?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
Do we... Because we know this has been a request from the community for a very long time. And if we don't think that garrisons are the housing, it completely obviously won't be this expansion. Put on our little tinfoil hats. Will it be next expansion?
It might be, because the garrisons feel like they're kind of testing the waters a little bit for player housing. Not just testing reactions to what they put out, but also testing the limits of their technology, because obviously at the very beginning of the expansion, we had a lot of problems with garrison phasing and different instances of garrisons not running properly. So it feels like kind of like with the Timeless Isle in Mists of Pandaria, it's like we're going to kind of put a taste of this out in the expansion, see how things play out, and then if it works out well, we'll launch a full thing next expansion, which has kind of been Blizzard's standard MO.
Kind of like how the farm was testing the water for what the garrison became.
Exactly. So it kind of feels to me like they're almost, because they've got a lot of the nuts and bolts already worked out with the garrisons for what would be needed for player housing. So it almost feels like this is the Timeless Isle, and then next expansion will be the whole Warlords of Draenor that comes out of Timeless Isle, to make a terrible metaphor.
Sure. It makes sense, though. Any other thoughts, comments, otherwise, on the idea of player housing for Warcraft? Any other final requests? Just in case someone might actually listen to this at some point.
No, I think I've said more than enough about the whole thing.
Yeah, I think I have too. Alright, let's go ahead and move on then. I am just going to play this for the time being. Oh, that's the wrong one. I shouldn't play that one. It's not the end. It's not the end. So I want to say that we don't have any mail this week. If you would like to send in mail, our email is thecastbar@gmail.com. Send us a tweet at castbarpodcast. You can call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278 or leave a comment on any of our videos on YouTube. I can't give you a URL because until we get a lot more views and subscribers on YouTube, I'm not able to actually get a custom URL. So if you would like to say anything to us or anything like that, or ask us a question or give us something to talk about on the show, send it to any of those mediums and we'll be sure to get to it. All right, let's go into the review. Welcome to the review, everybody, and I will let you know ahead of time this might be a little bit of an awkward review section. So every week we review something, whether it's a 5-man dungeon, which is probably our most popular option of our own choosing, whether a raid, a class, a spec, a quest line, a zone, a city. We're only 17 episodes in and we've already really went diverse on what we're reviewing, and we're going to make it even more diverse, and we're going to review the auction house that exists within the World of Warcraft. This might have been something we could have done for a closer look, but it's not quite as in-depth as we would like for something as, well, we just went on for like an hour on player housing. I don't think we could go on for even maybe 15 minutes trying to discuss the auction house in depth, so instead we're going to talk about what we think about the auction house. Normally the review section is broken into 3 parts: ambience, gameplay, and lore. So some of those might come up a little bit short in the auction house. So we're just going to give a general discussion and general view of the auction house as a total. Now, I hope everyone is aware of the auction house. It is this wonderful system that allows you to, instead of having to broadcast and shout, "I want to sell said item for 5,000 gold," you instead just put it up onto an interface and say, "I will sell it for this much. You have 48 hours to buy it," and so on and so forth. We all use it quite often, and we will begin right off the gate. I'm actually going to let Florian start, and the reason why is because his New Year's resolution was that he was going to try to play the auction house more, and try and I don't remember if you said you were immediately going for gold cap or if you just wanted to see if you could get as much as possible this year. I would ask how that was going, but your internet has kind of been completely kaput, so I imagine you've been having trouble with doing anything Warcraft related.
Yeah, that's a bit of an understatement. I have made a little bit of progress because lag isn't as big of an issue with the auction house as it is during actual gameplay. Mostly because the auction house, you just sit there and click on things and there's no rush to do anything. I'm really honestly not sure how to approach reviewing this, so I'm just gonna dive straight into the just the interface, I guess, which would be the ambience of the auction house, if it could be called that.
It's kind of gameplay and ambience for all things considered. I mean, just go ahead.
Yeah, well, just wrap those into one, I guess. Well, one thing that I've learned very quickly once I decided to start playing the auction house is that the auction house interface is actually
terrible,
very, very limited. Well, terrible is another way to put it.
It might be a little bit stronger term.
The thing is, if you use the auction house in any significant way, you're going to need an add-on. But for the purposes of this review, I went back to the stock auction house and suffered through it a little bit. And of course, it doesn't have a lot of important features you need, like tracking the prices of things over time, or just being able to post a whole bunch of stuff with one click, which I still don't understand why that isn't an option. If I want to post something, I've got to post my stacks. It's post items one at a time.
Which is really strange, because you can post multiple things at a time on the mobile app.
Yeah, that's what got me too. It's like, it's easier for me, even if I'm sitting at my computer, to just pull out my phone for auction house purposes.
I do it.
Actually go to the auction house. I do it too. And that makes absolutely no sense. It's ridiculous.
So I will give a little bit of the ambience for the auction house, and we can tear lore down together a little bit later. So there actually is more ambience to an auction house than what you might immediately think. I mean, Florian just described an interface, but think of everything that there is with an auction house. The thing that I actually enjoy a lot about auction houses is it's one of the few places that I can actually see other players. No matter what, I don't feel like I ever see very many other players in Warcraft. With cross-realm zones and with as much as they try and drive us into the same place, I don't see other players much. I don't know why. I mean, just maybe there's not a whole lot of real reason to be out in the world. I mean, that's a different conversation. But I do know that I do see players very often in the auction house. So, like, my New Year's resolution was I'm going to do the stupid world events. And a lot of those have involved with, like, throw snowflakes onto the other players, give them candy, spray them with perfume, do something stupid. And I'm, like, heading to the auction house because I know there'll be players there. So that's one thing that I do like about it. And it is kind of cool, the things that happen in the auction house that you don't readily notice. So, like, anytime that you buy something, your character actually holds up their hand to the auctioneer like, hey, I want to buy that. And I think the thing about it is it's supposed to be kind of like, well, like when you go to an auction and there's some dude up there and he's like, who wants to buy this beautiful suit of armor? It'll give you protection against cold and increase your strength by 549. Do I hear 200? Do I hear 250? 300? 350? The lady over there says 400. 400. Do I hear 400? Going once, going twice, and sold to you for 400. It's just a lot less exciting than that because it's just like, it's not going for less than 400. So that lady just wins automatically. But you do hold your hand up and it even makes the little auction house ding ding noise, you know, as bidding for this item is closed. So that's cool. But the problem with a lot of things in Warcraft is it's covered up by interface. So the ambience that does exist in the auction house, you don't get to see because you're too busy buying things.
Right. Yeah, the interface window is pretty enormous, as a matter of fact, and I'm surprised and thankful that they eventually allowed us to open up our trade skills alongside of it. I don't think that was always the case, to be honest.
That is purely dependent on your resolution. If you are playing on a small monitor, you still can't do that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so like I'm able to open like actually 3 things on my nice big wide monitor, but like if I'm on my laptop, I can't open trade skills and auction house at the same time.
Huh.
So it's purely based on how much space is available on your screen.
So I wonder if that was still a change they made in the past, or I think it was. It kind of strikes a bell. But at any rate, it is a pretty dated interface, and I'm surprised it's gone this long without a serious overhaul. I think they have made changes in the past that have kind of improved the filtering functions, and I remember pretty much the day that they allowed you to what's it called, dressing room, the items that you had in there, which was a kind of a boon and a godsend on RP servers. You have all this delicious, cheap green BOE gear, and you have no idea how it's going to look until you buy it, unless you use something like, at the time, I guess it was ThoughtBot, because this was a pretty early change in classic WoW. So, I mean, it's been making improvements, but the best improvement they made to the auction house in the past 10 years has been the mobile armory app.
I would argue against that.
Is that right?
I think the best change they've made to the auction house was in the last 6 months, and that was that the auction house across Horde and Alliance is now shared.
Oh, is that right? You think that's a better change?
I think that's a much better change. I thought that the neutral auction house was completely preposterous because, 1, it wasn't easily accessible, and 2, it was really, really frustrating if you were on a server that had a high population for one faction and you were on the low population side. I remember I was on a server and that server like died and then came back, and it used to be even and then went completely lopsided towards Horde, and I was on Alliance. It was like 100,000 Horde players to like the 1,000 Alliance. Like it was like Illidan levels. And to buy like a gem on the Horde side was like 50 gold. That same gem on the Alliance side was like 500 minimum because there wasn't enough people to make them. So, in my mind, that's the best change the auction house has ever had. And
that's going to be dependent on the server, because a lot of servers are going to say, you know, we used to have the low prices and they merged the factions and now it's crap. Or the server itself is pretty underpopulated and even the merge didn't do anything to remedy that problem.
Sure, that's a whole nother problem, though.
Yeah, they also just make it region-wide, like the WoW tokens, for God's sake.
I think if they did that, they would have to update the UI because the number of items available on the auction house would be too many to actually view.
Yeah, that would be a nightmare. I was just joking.
It would also completely debunk the whole thing if you're not allowed to transfer more than 50k gold on a character.
Oh yeah, it would homogenize all the markets on all the servers itself. I mean, that's the easiest way to trade gold. I think anybody who has any significant amount of gold has earned it through the auction house and not through player-to-player transactions, these days at least. I can't remember the last time I traded somebody gold, except guildmates. to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the auction house serves as the main avenue for gold farmers, not gold farmers necessarily, but what do you call the person who's interested in building up a huge WoW pocketbook?
An economist?
An economist? No, Florian, what do you think? Do you call him a broker? Do you call him a...
I don't know. It's like somebody who plays the auction house, so I guess...
What are you attempting to be, Florian?
I'm attempting to be wealthy. That's what I'm attempting to be.
All right, all the wealthiest WoW players are involved dramatically with the auction house system itself. So, of course, the auction house is more, I feel like, of an emergent gameplay feature than any other part of the game design. And in that way, I think the auction house has changed more dramatically than almost any other feature for the amount that Blizzard has toyed with the actual code behind the system itself. I think people's techniques of amassing a fortune have, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's pretty different nowadays than it has been in the past, simply because a lot of the WoW market is driven by, rare items and equipment and crafting especially, and those have all changed dramatically almost every time there's been an expansion since the Burning Crusade. And so the WoW player base's ability to react dynamically to that and change the way we use the auction house is more of a credit to the original code of the auction house that is able to support so many fluctuations in use and so many fluctuations in the way that gear, weapon, trade skills, especially, and world drop materials are fundamentally kind of by nature been altered every expansion, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes perfect sense.
So I like to give it a bad rap for being archaic and completely user anti-friendly. Without the use of an add-on, it seems like it's one of the only features that you almost need an add-on in order to be able to interact with it with any kind of grace or usefulness.
Do you think that might be why it hasn't been updated? Because Blizzard knows the people that want to use the auction house for more than just, I'm going to go see if, a T-Boo's Blazing Longsword is available on the auction house because I want it for transmog. Do you think they just don't update it because the only people who need a more in-depth interface are the ones that are essentially playing it?
Well, I don't know. Look at the Master Plan Garrison add-on and how quickly they adopted some of those features into the standard interface.
Right.
And then how long have we had mods like Auctionator by comparison?
Forever.
Without them having incorporated any of that into the Blizzard interface. That isn't. I don't think they're not changing it because we have that option. That doesn't seem like it would make much sense in the context of other changes that they've made.
It could be a cause for them to make it less of a priority, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it might not be that, they're not going to, but it's like, well, the people who need this already are just getting this add-on. It's working good enough for the time being, so let's focus on other things. And also, like I said about the whole, there's people, a lot like me who just, I'm going to go see if this is available. I'm going to go buy that, or I just need to sell a couple things. So I just go do it like normal. I don't use Auctioneer or Auctionator. I have in the past, but I don't do it now. But instead, they know that probably 99.5% of players are using the Garrison mission thing, so that is a much larger importance because that is something everyone's using every day.
That might be the kind
to
of
some level
link.
or another.
Right, it might be the widespread use of the Garrison missions, whereas not everybody probably uses the auction house.
And if they do, it might be on a lower level.
So there's that. How about things that the auction house absolutely does right? Do we have anything good to say about it?
It allows me to find things I want.
Well, besides the fact that it's a necessary component of WoW player economy.
I wouldn't say it's necessary. Because, by example, there are games that don't have auction houses. They might now. They didn't used to. That instead there was just like sections of town that were literally like the trade district, and you would go there, and there's people selling things.
Yep. RuneScape had the same thing back when I played it, because it was my first MMO, and I didn't know any better at the time, where people would basically just stand in the middle of town and just scream into the wind about whatever their particular wares were.
Selling a rune longsword, 28k.
Well, yeah,
people would just sit there for hours on end.
Ultima Online had the same thing where it was called bank sitting for us, where you just go to the bank and you sit there, and there's a lot of socialization happening. It's kind of like the Orgrimmar or the Stormwind Ironforge, I guess. But that was the way players kind of communicated the same thing. They just barked about things they were selling. But on top of that, they also had their player housing, and you could, just like Michael's talking about in his other game, you can put a little vendor there. It's an NPC. Somebody can come up to your house, even when you're not online, double-click on your vendor, and then the vendor would be able to sell your personal items to that player. So some kind of, here's what I want to sell, I can log off, and somebody might buy it while I'm offline. I don't have to be there. I don't have to be shouting, making macros, spamming. It's kind of automated. And
100% more spamming.
Yeah, Final Fantasy XI had the same thing, where there was an auction house system. It worked a little bit differently than Warcraft's. I think it's really interesting how it works, as a matter of fact. And it also, there were player store interface where I think you could list items in your inventory for sale and then just sit down and AFK, and people could come by and inspect you and check your store and buy things from your character directly without having to negotiate or open a trade window, that kind of thing.
I do think that the idea of the auction house and the way that it works in Warcraft is one of the most efficient ways possible. I don't think that anything else that we've talked about in terms of what we just got done discussing of other games' methods, I don't believe that any of those are superior to the idea of just this general auction house that Warcraft has.
Well,
I do think the interface needs updated, but I do not believe that anything is superior to the way that this works.
Well, let me present the alternative that Final Fantasy XI did use. And I'm not sure about 14 Florian, if this uses the same kind of thing, but the auction house is somewhat blind. What you can do, and there's a lot less customization of gear. If you have a leather jerkin, it has 12 armor no matter what, and it's indistinguishable from other leather jerkins of the same kind. And this leather jerkin isn't bind on pickup at all. So basically, as you're leveling up, you have a full set of leather armor, and then when you graduate to scale armor, you can take off that leather set and just sell it. So you buy it, use it, and then when you're done, you can put it back in the auction house. Now, when you look for a leather jerkin, you see the leather jerkin, and there are 12 iterations of it on the auction house, and you can't see what price they're listed for. You have to make a bid. And if I listed my leather jerkin for 700 gil, and you bid 800 gil, and mine was the lowest one, then you bought my jerkin for 800, and I get 800 gil in return. So, I mean, you could be risky and say sell your leather jerkin listed at 1 gil, try to undercut everybody, but it wouldn't be displayed as costing 1 gil. The buyer would bid using they'd be able to see what price the last 10 leather jerkins sold for and say, they're selling for about 700. Let me try to get lucky and bet 500, and then I would bid 500, and if any of them were offered for 500 or less, I would get the lowest one, which was that guy's 1 gil leather jerkin. So the guy,
super interesting system.
Yeah, the guy, got the guaranteed sale because he had the lowest price, and the seller got a good deal. But it would have been thwarted if the seller had bid, 2 or 3 gil and scooped off those really cheap ones off the bottom. So it's a little bit of risk for the buyer or seller as well.
I have a question for that system though. So you don't see the prices for them, and you can see, the general prices for them, like you said.
Yeah, you can see the last 10 sales.
Okay, cool. Now, let's say there's 20 of them, and the last 10 sales were like 1,000 gold.
Right.
Gil. They were 1,000 gil, and 2 people have put them up for sale for one for 450, one for 500, and someone comes up and puts a bid on one for 600. Does it just pick one, or does it go to the dude who was 450?
The 450 seller sells his item because it was lowest. That's why the person would sell it for 1 gil. They want to be the guaranteed sale if anybody bids anything at all.
Now, if there's 2 people at 1 gil, is it just whoever put theirs up first?
I think it probably works that way, yeah.
Okay. So I will save my next statement for after we talk about lore. And that's the lore of the auction house, the story behind it. And I believe we can incorporate into this one giant thing of there is none. I don't think anywhere in the entire game at all whatsoever does any character or any quest involve the auction house.
Yeah, it is kind of funny how it's so separate from all the other game systems.
Like, I think actually pre-Cataclysm, there was a quest that took you to one of the Stormwind's auctioneers, I think. But I could just be remembering something that doesn't exist on that. But for the most part, no one talks about it, no one mentions it. It's just something that exists. The closest thing to lore at all is that you can ask the guards where it is.
Now, as far as before Cataclysm, because I think around Cataclysm was the time when auction houses start popping up in all the major cities, each with their own, I think, racial auctioneers. Was the old Stormwind auction house run by goblins at any point in the past?
Yeah, digging
Florian,
some old memory banks, man.
Do you recall, Florian, back in the Burning Crusade when you started in Wrath of the Lich King?
I don't remember either.
Oh, wow.
This is like ancient times that you're bringing up.
You're asking me to dust off some really old memory banks there.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, at least we know that the neutral auction house was always covered by goblins, and I believe the Orgrimmar auction house is covered by goblins as well, which is kind of, that's one of the only relevant kind of things about the auction house is that you have these goblins in charge, at least of ours. They are profiteers. They, facilitate trade, finance, commerce, that kind of thing, and they're in it for the profit, which is why the auction house takes a cut. As far as like a lore reason for the cut, there's actually gameplay reasons, and Blizzard's talking about them very often.
There's a cost for posting, and when you sell something, they also take a cut, and it's to prevent spam posting, as well as constantly taking down and reposting your items to have the lowest price. So it's to prevent constant posting, spam, and undercut.
But when you receive your auction house successful sale in the mail, you can read the amount that the auction house took as their cut.
5%.
And that is kind of explained in a kind of lore way. I mean, the goblins are doing the thing, and that's their profit. I mean, they're all about the profit, which I think
auction houses in the real world take a cut of your money. So
exactly, yeah, and that's kind of further. I guess right now the neutral auction houses in Everlook and Booty Bay and all that are tied into the main auction houses. I haven't visited since they made the interfaction change, but I guess it would have made the independent auction houses obsolete. Is that right?
Correct.
And I can go double check that too while we're talking about it. But my point was that in the past, these neutral goblin auction houses had a much higher cut that they would take, which is also kind of a lore kind of thing. They're greedy, and you're trading on their terms, and they're doing business with the Horde and Alliance, and maybe they need some extra security with their little bruisers.
Well, the idea of the neutral auction house that was like down in Booty Bay, it was kind of like the black market auction house in the way that it was designed and styled, and the feel of everything. It was you're technically selling to the enemy, so that would definitely be a black market transaction. And now we have the black market auction house, which is, do we want to talk about it at all? Just it's the same function, just sold by NPCs and rare items for way too much money.
Right, it's a gold sink.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call that a proper auction house, though, since players aren't selling.
It's more like a vendor that you get to bid on.
Pretty much.
Like that's how I see it. It's an auctioned vendor.
And I don't really see what's so black market about it. I still don't understand that part of it. I don't know if I missed a quest somewhere that explains it.
I think the idea behind it is the stuff that's on it. You know, it's got like raid loot in it, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, but how does that make it a black market? Like, is there like does the Alliance and Horde have like laws against time travel? You can't go back in time and get like max 40 gear to bring up. I don't understand the black market component of it. Why don't they just call it like the
rare market?
Sweet, awesome stuff you can't get anymore market? I don't know. I just don't think black market's the appropriate name, I guess.
That's fair.
My quality.
So, I will start this. What is one feature that you want added to the auction house? Now, I will give you mine first, and this is purely copying another MMO, EVE Online. EVE Online, you can sell all kinds of things. They have this humongous, beautiful interface, all dedicated to buying and selling all ridiculous number of sorts of things. They have one feature that I love, and it's the buy order. So, you look on the auction house, or you look on the store, and you go, darn, there isn't a T-Boo's Blazing Longsword for sale anywhere. Well, I'll tell you what. I will put my little piece of paper up there that says I will buy one for 50,000 gold. And then and other people can go, hey, that guy's looking for a T-Boo's Blazing Longsword. I have one in my bank. Right. Ding. There you go. Mm-hmm. That is such a wonderfully amazing system, and I wish it existed. It's because it also allows you to set your own price for what you're willing to buy things at. It's like, the market for Blackrock ore is a little expensive right now. You know, it's 2 gold a ore. It's not. It's 2 gold an ore. I don't really want to pay that much, so I'll put a buy order up that says I will buy, 1,000 of them for 1 gold each. And someone goes, yeah, sure, I'll do that. But
yeah, and that takes out the kind of investment effort of somebody who wants to sell something, but they don't want to keep checking the auction house, and they don't want to have to bother relisting it if it doesn't sell. So those people who have the goods, who maybe don't want to hassle with selling, could still sell the goods, right?
Right. That's the system that I want to see. What is something that you guys would like to see implemented to the auction house, if anything?
What I would like to see, probably, this is, as far as I'm concerned, the most useful feature that mods like Auctioneer give you, is the ability to see what an item is worth and what you can probably sell it for on the auction house. Something like maybe the average price that this sold for during the past couple weeks or something like that, which is incredibly useful when you get a drop that, for example, a world drop that you have no idea what the value is, or some other kind of item that isn't, you can't just open up the auction house and see a whole page of them listed and see, kind of get a gist of what the value of that item is currently. It's some items, if you get a rare world drop, or especially with transmogs, since a lot of times if you get a good transmog, you can go on auction house and no one will have any posted. It'll give you a good way of finding out how much that's worth. And I think that should really be part of the stock UI, because it's really useful and it helps keep you from having to alt-tab or get add-ons.
It also helps establish a stronger market.
That is also true. It would probably help to act as a stabilizing force, too.
You get to see that, the Crimson Death Charger's reigns sell most oftenly, or they have the most success in selling at 50K or whatever. So you won't even bother with posting it. Well, you might. But it'll keep people from doing that. I don't know what this is worth, so I'll just post it for 400,000 gold, because there's not one on here.
Right.
Because I have no idea
like that
what
kind of
worth.
Feature. It would require a whole lot of compiling and data use.
I bet you Blizzard has it.
Well, I mean, on the client side, it seems like if I run my auction scanner, it's a crazy amount of data that has to be transferred to my client. And even if that data was stored on the server and Blizzard collected it themselves, they still have to transfer it to your client. I'm not a big computer systems engineer or anything, but
they don't necessarily have to transfer it to your client. You could just search it on their side. So you send them, your interface, you click on an item and it sends, item number 769422729 off to Blizzard's server, and then Blizzard server sends back the 5, numbers of data that is relevant to that item.
Right.
Yeah, and it could also be baked into the auction house, because when you put an item up for sale, it'll automatically populate a price. It already does this, but usually that price is whatever the vendor price is or something like that. I don't know what it is, but it's extremely low. What it could do is simply, when you pop something into the auction sell window, it queries Blizzard server and finds the suggested price, and then populates that automatically for you.
Yeah. Well, I have figured out that GadgetZan is indeed linked to the Horde Alliance Auction House network now, in case there was any doubt in our minds.
Okay, so here we go. Florian, overall auction house grade. We always do letter grades for things we review. So, what is your overall grade of the auction house in Warcraft?
I'll give it a B. It works, but it needs more refinements.
Evan, what is your overall grade of the auction house system in Warcraft?
I'm going to give it a W for way cool.
I guess I didn't say A through F, so W is a letter.
No. I'm joking, yeah. I think it's B. I like the system. It's a good take on the auction house idea in general. It's got resilience, and it morphs along with all of these changes that Blizzard keeps throwing out, crafting especially. So I think that it's pretty good, and it does have a couple flaws, and I think it cocould be optimized. B minus, I'm going to say. There's a lot of room for optimization, but it's definitely not untenable, unworkable. So I think it's a pretty good job overall. It's got pretty good staying power for the amount of changes they put into it, which is very few.
It's lived for 10 years, just like the game. I will also be giving it a B minus. That is technically above average. I'll give it a B. I'll give it a flat B, not a B minus. It's above average, especially when I compare it to the systems for a lot of other games. There's some, if you wanted, I could rattle off some games that I think have a little bit better of a system, but that's because they have taken time to refine them, as we know Blizzard has not taken any time to really refine the auction house system, past, merging stuff together. But it is better than a lot of other game systems, if they even have systems. So with that, it is good, but it has a lot of things that need to be improved on it, like we've already talked about. And, I'm not going to get to take points off of it for not having any lore, because, really, what
do you want?
Yeah, do you know how ridiculous it would seem if, someone was like, okay, I need you to go to the auction house as a quest, and you need to buy me a gray sword or something, It's just like, what are you doing, Blizzard? Give me, is this supposed to be my auction house tutorial? Get away from me. Shut up. So if it doesn't have lore, oh well, whatever. This was, if the auction house did have lore, I would have been so impressed with Blizzard. As it stands, it doesn't. So, B minus from B plus B, a B from me, and gives it a B overall. Power to Blizzard for keeping it going, and B overall. It's auction house. It does its job. It gets it done, and it's not that terrible. And if you get things like Auctioneer and Auctionator, it's easily an A. But only because those actually do refine the system in the way that it needs refined. But I just don't think it's high on Blizzard's priority list. Any other closing thoughts on the auction house?
I think that they'll rework the auction house around the same time as they rework the crafting system, which might be next expansion. I think it'll probably be next expansion. That's what I predict.
The time for the rework for the crafting system is every expansion.
I think they're going to really turn it on its head.
All right. Well, you were right about Twitter. So I will not discount your prediction prowess on this, because I never would have guessed Twitter was the reason we weren't getting appear offline on Battle.net. You guessed it. You were right. You have to have inside information.
I might
have to get your leak.
For all of my inside information, I still can't get the selfie mission.
Or access to the Heroes of the Storm beta.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We're going to work on getting ourselves out of here now. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for tuning in, for downloading or watching the show on YouTube or wherever. As always, if you'd like to contact the show, we love feedback, we love questions, we always get excited when we see it. And you can send us an email, which is thecastbar@gmail.com. Send us a tweet at castbarpodcast. Call and leave us a voicemail. Still haven't got a single one of those. I would appreciate having one at some point. 508-738-2278. You can or send us a comment on any of our YouTube videos, which is one of the places where you can find our old shows. All of them are on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. If you need the RSS feed, let me know, as we don't currently have a website for me to post it. Or if there's any other place that you think that I need to send it to, because you have to apply to get on iTunes and Stitcher. So if there's a place, let me know. I will work on figuring out how to make that happen. If you want, you can leave us a review on iTunes. It does help the show a lot if you do so, because more reviews means more people will see the show when they search for things related to Warcraft or anything like that. And so that is a direct benefit to the show. All of the music for our bumpers, not the little, not these. The actual music for the bumpers is done by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incomtech.com. It's all licensed under Creative Commons, royalty free, so you can buy it and just use it as much as you want, or you can get it for free and then just make sure you let people know that it's his, because otherwise he can sue you. If you want to get a hold of me, always you can send an email to my attention at the Castbar. I have gotten much more active on Twitter in the last week. I guess I'm just starting to figure out how to use it more and realize that I don't have to post necessarily anything important, and it can just be fun little quips or random pieces of useless information. And my Twitter is at Schwahn Michael. You can find it in the show notes, and it's spelled SCHWAHNMICHAEL. Last name, first name is essentially what you're working with. Evan, where are people able to find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at EDCWow.
So, I know that Florian's is his initials and name. EDC, what is your middle name? Because I know your last name already.
No, I can't reveal that in this public sphere. I'll be doxxed.
Okay, random little tangent. First, Florian, what's your Twitter?
My Twitter, for those who care to follow it, is at FALANGX. I don't really tweet those, so that's really more of just a way to contact me.
Okay, so now that you know how to contact us, it's because you don't want to say your middle name on the air, which is perfectly fine. I don't care. But do you remember being in middle school and that being the biggest deal ever was people not knowing your middle name, and you had all these games and stuff to make sure that they couldn't find out what your middle name was?
I don't know,
or was that just my school and we were just all retarded? Because I definitely remember for the longest time, you couldn't let people know what your middle name was because it was a big deal. Even if it was something like Alan or something like that. It was oh, your middle name isn't anything special. I thought it was going to be Chuck or... No, Chuck's not exactly... I don't know. But you get what I'm getting at? Did anyone else share this experience, or am I just crazy?
No, my parents were lecturing me on the benefits of cybersecurity from a very young age. Never give your middle name away. Never tell anybody what the name of your first pet was. Never let anybody find out.
Is security question really what is your middle name? Is that actually an option?
I hope not.
I've heard what is your mother's maiden name, or what is your mother's... I think I've seen one that is what is your mother's middle name. I've never seen what is your middle name, though. That seems...
It's a terrible idea.
Yeah, it's that's the worst security question ever. You might as well just ask me, what is my first and last name, and, what's your phone number?
I don't know.
All right. Well, anyway, Everyone, if you're still listening, thank you for listening. We're going to get out of here. It's late. People need to sleep. People need food. Probably need to use the restroom. Everyone, take it easy, and we will see you next week.
You are out of time.